what we're going to do in problem 10 is make this multiplication, and we're going to multiply through here, right? We're going to use the distributive property. So I'll do it step by step here. First of all, we're going to get square root of 6 times square root of 6. Let's just draw it here. We will get square root of 6 times square root of 6, and then minus, now over here we're going to get square root of 6 times 6. I'm going to write this 6 first. So we'll get 6 square root of 6. Now here, square root of 6 times square root of 6, that's just 6. Or if you wanted, you could see it like this. 6 times 6, right? Since they both have the same index, which is a 2, you can just go ahead and operate underneath the radical sign. So we'll get the square root of 6 squared, which is square root of 36, which is 6, minus, and now this 6 is outside, this is inside, they'll stay that way. So we're just going to bring this down, 6 square root of 6. And up here, just more quickly, when you multiply a square root by itself, then you end up with just the radicand. Square root of 6 times square root of 6 is just 6. Square root of 10 times square root of 10 is just 10. Now we've got two terms here, multiplying two terms here, so we'll distribute. Let's start with a 2, run it through. So we will get, we're going to get here, 2 times that 4, that's going to be an 8, and then 2 times negative 2. Now that 2 is outside, this 2 is outside, so they'll stay that way. If the 6 is inside, it'll stay inside. So we'll get 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, so we get negative 4 square root of 6. Now, let's move over here. We'll get 3 times 4. All right, 3 square root of 5 times 4. The 3 is outside, the 4 is outside. They'll stay there. Positive 3 times positive 4 is 12, and then we still have the square root of 5. So we're going to get plus 12 square roots of 5. And then, last, we'll have 3 square root of 5 times negative 2 square root of 6. So the 3 and the negative 2 are outside. We can multiply those. 3 times negative 2, negative 6. And now the 5 is inside and the 6 is inside, so we can multiply inside there. We'll get the square root of 6 times 5. I'm just going to write that as the square root of 30. And I think we're done here, right? Nothing combined. So we've got an 8. These are different than these, which are different than these, and I can't break the 6 down. I can't break it down into two numbers, one of which I know the square root. I can't break the 5 down. I can't break the 30 down into two numbers, one of which I know the square root, right? The 5 and the 6 don't help because I don't know those square roots. 10 and 3, I don't know those square roots. 15 and 2, I don't know those square roots, so I think we're done here. So let's just claim that is the expanded version of number 11. And in number 12 here, the way I'm looking at this is that this is a 6th root, and these powers here are bigger than 6. So it's like we've got a package and too much stuff in the package. So let's remove some of the stuff that's overflowing. We want these exponents to be smaller than that index. And here's the way I like to do this. I like to run this as division. So I'm going to take, here's the x's. I'm going to take the index 6 into the exponent 8. So for the x, I'm going to take 6 divided into 8. Right? 6 into 8. So 6 will go into 8 one time with remainder 2. Right? 6 into 8 is once, and there's 2 left over. So what that means is, and I'll do this at the end, is I'm going to pull one x out, but 2 of them will remain under the radical. 1 comes out, 2 remain. Let's do the same thing for the y's. So for the y's, we're going to have, oh, that's a mess. Okay, so for the y's, we're going to have the same idea here. Index into exponent, so let's make that division. So 6 into 15, well, that'll go twice. That'll give us a 12 with 3 left over. So 6 into 15 is 2 with remainder 3, which means we can pull 2 y's out, but 3 will remain under the radical. So here's our result. Now, be careful. We started with a 6th root. Don't forget that index here. So this is going to be, well, let's take our numbers out first. What are we going to take out first? We're going to take out an x and 2 y's. So we're going to take out an x 2y's is a y squared. And now, don't forget the index, 6. So we'll get the 6th root of what? Well, 2 x's remain, right? X's, 2 remain, so we'll get 2 x's under the radical. And for the y's, 3 y's remain under the radical. We want to rationalize this denominator here in 13, right? Look at that denominator. It's an irrational number. We're going to rationalize it. We're going to get rid of that radical. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to multiply by 1. Now, I'm going to show every single step here. You can probably skip some of these, but I'm going to show all of them. I'm going to multiply by 1. That doesn't change the value, but it's going to change the appearance, because instead of writing the 1 like this, I'm going to write it as denominator over denominator. I'm going to write it like this. 42 over square root of 6 times, now here's the 1, write it like this. Square root of 6, square root of 6. And now we've got a multiplication. I'll multiply the tops together. 42 square roots of 6. And when I multiply the bottoms together, right, square root of 6 times square root of 6, multiply a radical by itself, the radical comes off, and we just get 6. And one more step here, right? 6 will go into 42 7 times. So it turns out this simplifies to 7 square roots of 6. So what we're saying is that this number right here can be rewritten as this number right here. In number 14, we're going to rationalize this denominator. Now, the difference between the denominators in 14 and back here at 13, we had a single term denominator. In 14, we've got 2 terms in the denominator. So in 13, we just had to multiply it by square root of 6 over 6, right? Just take that denominator, multiply it by the top and the bottom, square root of 6 over square root of 6. But in 14, we've got 2 terms. So it's still going to be the same idea, but what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by 1. Let's indicate that. So we'll get 10 over 7 plus square root of 47 times 1. But the 1, we're going to write kind of what we did over here, right? We took denominator over denominator, but instead of this exact denominator, we're going to write the conjugate of this. Now, the conjugate we're going to get by just changing the sign. So this is going to be 10 over 7 plus square root of 47 times. Now, get the conjugate of this. So 7 plus square root, the conjugate is 7 minus the square root. So we're going to get 7 minus the square root of 47. 7 minus the square root of 47. Now in the numerator, let's just indicate this. Don't actually multiply through yet. We're going to indicate it. I'm going to take the left top, multiply it, or indicate the multiplication by the right top. So I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to write 10 times 7 minus square root of 47 over, now, over what? I'm multiplying conjugates together. Let's just remember something about multiplying conjugates. I'll do that right up here. So just to remind us, if you take conjugates, maybe something like x plus 4. So let's take that x plus 4 and multiply it by its conjugate, and x minus 4. We're going to multiply first and first, getting x squared. Then we'll multiply the outer product, right, the first and the last. That'll give us negative 4x. Then the inner product, positive 4x. And then the last and the last. Positive times negative is negative, and we get 4 squared. The 2 middle terms cancel, right? They're opposites. And we get x squared minus 16. So our rule is to, say, identify 1, square the first, put a minus sign, square the second. So when you multiply conjugates, you square the first, put a minus sign, square the second. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to square the first, put a minus sign, square the second. So let's do just that. Let's square the first. So we will get 7 squared is 49. Put a minus sign and square the second. Now when you square a square root, the radical comes off, right? Square root times 47 times square root of 47 is just 47. So square the first, getting 49. Put a minus sign, square the second, square a square root, that radical comes off. I get 47. Now we can do something in the bottom. In the top, I'm just going to rewrite it as 10, indicate it, don't multiply through yet. 7 minus square root of 47, close. All over 49 minus 47 is a 2. And then as it turns out in this problem anyway, 2 will go into 10 5 times, and that will leave us 5 times the quantity, 7 minus square root of 47. And I'm going to leave it like this. I suppose you could multiply it through if you like, getting 35 minus 5 square roots of 47. You could do that, but I like factored form, so I'm going to leave it just like this.